in black and white and honest conversation. One African American male, one Jewish American male, friends for nearly 50 years, looking at the state of play in the U.S. through our respective community lenses. Brock and Ellis joins me now live with more on what's happening. Brock, there are reports today out of the nation's capital that dozens and dozens of Republicans are calling President Trump's chief of staff and begging her to make him stop. But I know that's futile. I've never had a conversation with the president. Why are they wasting their time?
Oh, so that's Susie Wiles. She, the Vanity
Yeah.
Fair article, is supposedly going to go in and exert influence over Trump. And who are these unnamed, unidentified, quiet, whisper to someone in the press politicians who, God forbid, would say something publicly like this? Um, it's kind of a joke. It's not going to get any. It's not going to have an impact. If they want to have an impact, they should stand up. They should vote against something. They should, exert the power given to them as congressmen and senators. So,
Yeah.
okay, they're making backroom calls. Okay, so it's leaking out that they know Trump is a psychopath. Okay,
Right.
a malignant narcissist, a pathological liar in severe mental decline. Okay,
Right.
so it's good to know that behind the scenes, some Republicans are saying that, but
Right.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter
This,
that
I'm
much,
sure there's
does
people behind the scenes in every. I'm sure there's people behind the scenes in Russia going, "Damn, Putin's still running with this war." I'm sure there's people behind the scenes in Iran going, "Wow, these protesters seem to have like a lot of energy in them. I wonder if our guys can. Are we really going to kill thousands of them?" There's people behind the scenes probably in North Korea going, "Wow, he just dropped a bomb on top of like three people because they, you know, slurped their soup too loud." I mean,
Right.
there's always someone who's behind the
Right.
scenes quietly shaking their head in disgust, but they're useless.
Right. Nobody right now is taking on the Mad King, right? You know, this is not a normal political cycle. Why are we waiting for the midterms? Why do we think we're going to have midterms? Why do we think that he's going to abide by any piece of paper or any sternly written letter by Chuckles? Get the fuck out, Chuck. Um, when he has abided by nothing. He's abided by nothing. And who's going to enforce it? Are you going to send the U.S. Marshals in? They're under the control of the DOJ. Who's going to get him out besides us? Besides us, the American people.
I think people have to go through the mental exercise of, okay, let's say the Democrats sweep the midterms, and let's say they in turn then impeach Trump, and let's say they convict him for removal. Do you think he would quietly walk out of the White House and give up the seat?
Let's see. Let's look at January 6th.
So if
Same
the answer
thing.
to that is, if the answer is that is
No.
there's no fucking way Trump's going to do that, then who cares about winning the midterms and who cares about impeaching him, right?
Right.
He's going to say he'll abolish Congress or he'll send his ICE militia in there to, I don't know, just kill them all. Well,
Right.
explain to me what stops him from doing that.
Right.
And I just don't see what stops him from doing any of these things. He now has his hands on a domestic military in ICE and an international military that is by far the strongest in the world.
Right.
And he's already said yesterday that he doesn't have to abide by any international law. The only criteria is his morality as to how our military gets used. So when your leader speaks
is
like
none.
that, when your leader speaks like that, you are there in an authoritarian society.
Yep.
And stop talking about 2026 as if the end goal is to win the midterms.
Right.
They're not going to matter to Donald Trump. That is not the mechanism for removal.
Right. Right. So what do you make of these protests? I mean, we're seeing a lot of people out in the streets, but a protest in Los Angeles doesn't really help us. We need to be protesting in the nation's capital, and we need to drag this fat fuck out on his ass. That's the bottom line. We need to
The
make
protests
it
are good because they draw awareness, they draw attention, and they hopefully shake up and wake up some of complacent America. Maybe they get some people thinking about what is going to be necessary for change.
Mm-hmm.
But unto themselves, they derive no direct benefit. Certainly not a peaceful protest. So people are out on the street, they're waving placards, they're making noise, they're singing, dancing, chanting, and showing some level of force. But then they go home and it's as if it didn't happen, right?
Right.
So I think the big debate is, and this is my take on it, is like we're kind of playing the game like it's 1960s civil rights movement, and that you got to go out there and be nonviolent and get hit over the head with batons and have dogs sent at you, but you have to stay nonviolent because you have to be above the fray and you're trying to win some sort of point while you're getting the shit kicked out of you. And I don't think that's the environment we're in. And I think we're going to have cross the line and start having the conversation about how violent protests have to be for there to be change. Because I don't see how a nonviolent protesting meaning jack shit to Trump or anyone in his administration. And listening to them speak today, but Kristi Noem or Tom Homan and the like, they're just doubling down on ICE agents. They don't care that someone was shot. They don't care that there's people out protesting. They're just going to bring on more violence to nonviolence protesters. So, okay, you can be out there nonviolently. You're going to get your ass kicked. You're going to get pepper sprayed. So, okay, somebody show me and explain to me what the benefit is going to be of that show, unless that show of force is in the hundreds of thousands to millions of people.
Right.
I'm talking about like 1 million people descending on DC to where the entire city can't operate, and the workers from, except for Trump, who lives in his office, everyone else can't even get there. People can't even get to the White House to get to work. They can't get to their buildings. They all have to work from home because they can't even move and function in the city. That's if we're going to be nonviolent, it has to be in the tens of millions. Otherwise, we're going to have there's going to have to be a fight with this domestic military force. There's going to be casualties. There's going to be conflict.
But how do we win a fight against a well-armed military? Like, I mean, yeah, there's guns on the streets everywhere, but is anybody willing to use them? Is anybody really willing to shoot back? And that's where the problem comes in.
Or the numbers
like
have to
everybody
be
wants
so.
change, but who's willing to get out there and get in the way, of flying bullets? I mean, now we're talking
Hundreds of thousands of people in Iran are doing it right now. They're doing it right fucking now.
Right.
They're doing it in parallel with us, but they're not going home, and they're getting killed left and right.
Yep.
I mean, go back and watch that documentary about how Ukraine got rid of their corrupt leader, the Russian puppet, how they kind of really became a democracy. Yep. And they were out on the streets for months at a time. They got shot at. They took casualties. No one wants to be the person that gets hurt or killed. Right. But if you're afraid as an individual that you might get hurt, so therefore you're not out there, or you're just out there quietly marching and then going home and watching the Golden Globes, like you just can't expect there to to inflict change or force change if you
Right.
haven't pressured the powers that be into change. And I just don't see these protests pressuring anyone into anything. So I don't know how you do it. I don't know. Everybody's got to sleep, I don't know how ICE sleeps at night, I mean, I saw that guy put drums out in front of the hotel, I just think there's going to have to be some disruption, and or the most safety comes safety in numbers.
Yeah.
When the numbers are so huge that they're overwhelming, that a couple hundred agents are staring down at 200,000 people in front of them,
Right.
if they fire, they have to get to, you have to get to the point too where if they think if they fire, they're going to get killed.
Right.
Because they may kill a few people, but as soon as someone gets a hold of them, they're dead. Like,
Yeah.
look,
Yeah.
this is a power play. This is a military takeover of America.
Ooh.
I mean, what is ICE doing in Minneapolis? It's a military takeover.
Yeah.
Right?
And
They've
you need
also
to
they're not allowing the justice system to function, right? They're not allowing there to be an investigation against their agent who killed someone. Like they've already stripped America down to the bones. Like we've already lost it.
Right. Which is unbelievably disgusting that they just said, yeah, the state of Minnesota is not getting anywhere near this investigation. Why is that? Because you're the arbiter of fact? You're the one who determines what truth is? I mean, they are literally taking our government, shredding it, and doing whatever the fuck they want. And we're a year into, okay. How do we get to 2028? Right? Like at this pace, who's even going to be here?
How are we going to get there? We're taking over Greenland. There'll be no NATO. We'll have taken over Cuba. So I guess we'll have taken over. We'll have invaded Mexico. Maybe invaded Canada by then. So we'll have quote conquered the entire North America. That's who we as the people are. So what? People are going to keep signing up to be a part of this military. Like people are going to keep signing up to the National Guard and just say, "Oh yeah, I'm on board with this. I'm on board with this." And 2/3 of the American people who disapprove of Trump are just going to go along with America conquering the entire North America. We're going to stop being allies with Europe and the UK because we'll have taken over Greenland, so we've broken up our alliances. So our allies will be Russia. So that's the country that we're looking at. Mark, the question I have, and I want answered by somebody come in the chat. Game this out for me. We go through 2028. We win the election. Dems sweep. Dems impeach. Dems convict. Trump says, I'm not fucking going anywhere. I'm abolishing Congress. What do? What happens then? We still going to have a nonviolent protest? Are we going to have a nonviolent protest that Trump has abolished the entire Congress?
I mean, I don't think we need to wait till 2028. He might do it next year at the midterms.
Yeah, so just show me the mechanism. I want to see the Project Trump removal plan. I want to see that written out as a strategy and what the steps are. Because at some point, the way it seems to me is we're kind of like what Venezuela was when Maduro lost a free election and said he wasn't going anywhere, right? It all came down to whether the military was going to back him or not. Right? In that moment, it could have gone either way. If the military had backed down, then that other woman who really seemed to have won the election would be running Venezuela, not Maduro. Right. So I think this thing's going to happen here. We're going to have a point and a conflict where our military is going to have to make a decision of whether they back the Constitution or they back Trump.
Right.
It's going to happen here. We're one of those countries. That's who we are. That's where we are right now. Yeah. That's where we are right now.
The whole country.
We're not seeing the Epstein files. Where are the Epstein files? Where are the Epstein files? Congress voted unanimously
to get him out.
For the full disclosure of the Epstein files, it's now January 11th. We haven't seen shit.
Nope.
What's the mechanism for seeing them? What's the enforcement mechanism?
Well,
There is
you know
none.
what? There is none. And, that's because our founders, in their infinite wisdom, never believed that this kind of thing would go on. They never thought that anybody would be as ballsy as President Trump, and they thought they had all the systems in place to keep a dictator from installing himself. But they were woefully lacking in that regard. So, he took over all three houses, including the Supreme Court, which is right now moot. They're part of the reason we're in this fucking mess. Those six, hyenas that voted to give him what he believes is absolute power to do whatever the fuck he wants, whenever the fuck he wants, for as long as he fucking wants. So, we're pretty much screwed here. France is developing a war plan for Greenland to send troops up there. They're asking for help from the NATO coalition. It appears to be coalescing. So, he's toppling the world order. And he's making the world a very unstable place. I think that we're going to see a lot more movement in other hot spots around the world because they're going to be emboldened because USA is no longer the world police, right? We're no longer the moral authority helping those who cannot help themselves. So, Brock, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Beyond that, we've also redefined what's in America's national interest.
Exactly.
So we weren't always there just because because of our morals. We were very often in places because it was in our economic interest to be there. And the world order, as it was pre-Trump, was very much aligned to the benefit of America and us as citizens, so that we could be the wealthiest country in the world with all the perks, right? Yeah. With the highest quality of living anywhere in the world. So now American national interest has been redefined as what's in Trump's interest. Right. Therefore, everything is repositioned to who's lining his pockets, not what is in the best interest of all of Americans. And that's broken. So the world order, to a certain extent, is already broken down. I mean, NATO doesn't believe that we'll live up to Article 5 and would protect them if they were invaded by Russia. So it's a lot of the world order as it stands now is on paper only. The United Nations doesn't believe they can bank on America to step in and be a part of any UN forces to step into an area where there are atrocities. No one trusts that America is going to do things that are in the interest of the world order. They know that America's national interest is defined as what's in Donald Trump's best interest. And we, the people, have allowed that.
Yeah. And his best interest is nothing more than his bank account and his family's bank account. I think we talked about this when it happened last year around this time, but that exclusive club with the $500,000 membership that Don Jr. opened, didn't we discuss that? I mean, to the tune of $35 million.
It's his DC club. Yeah, I mean, it's. To me,
everything's
it's just a bribery. It's just a bribery scheme. Just like whenever the $1 million a plate dinner at Mar-a-Lago, where the crypto scammer mother buys a table and a week later her son gets a pardon. Exactly. I mean, every one of these, I think I said it yesterday, whenever I see any kind of deal cut, any sort of business arrangement for the U.S. that involves the U.S. government in any way, shape, or form, I just want to, first look is, how does this benefit Trump directly?
Right.
That's it. That's the first thing I want to see. I don't think, I know that, because I know that's what drove the decision. And anything behind that, is almost is secondary in however that agreement was crafted.
Yeah.
I mean, we're corrupt, we lie, like, I mean,
Yes, sir.
no one can trust us, and we're in decline. And as people, we can't go quietly. It is happening. We are there. Mark, I think back, like, look, Nazi Germany is the worst atrocity maybe of our lifetimes. Maybe Darfur was, I think the most people still, were killed by the Nazis, right?
Right.
So think of all the Jews that were lied to, that got on like trains because they were being told they were being, quote, relocated, and basically were taken to concentration camps and killed, right? They were all but they were told to comply and don't be violent and just get along, and like it'll be better for you to just get along, right? Don't rise up. Every one of those people regrets the decision to go along with their lying, treacherous government.
Right.
And some Jews fought in the ghettos. It's famous stories, right? They fought to the death against the Germans in the ghettos. And most of them died there also. But I guarantee none of those people regretted their decision to fight. And in retrospect, we know what they did was the smart move, not just to go along quietly, believing the lies of a government that's not in your interest. And
Well,
like, you have to fight for yourself, and we're kind of there. Listen to the rhetoric of Kristi Noem and Tom Homan. Like, they don't value our lives.
At
They don't
all.
care about our lives at all, and we're just being told to just shut up
Shut
and
up.
get along and stay nonviolent and stay quiet and stay out of the way while they take over America and reshape it into a white supremacy society.
yeah.
And my question for everyone is that how you're going to play it? That's how you're going to play it. You're going to play it like you're just going to go along complicit and listen to that demand, and you're going to roll along and you're going to non-violently shuffle along while America gets reshaped into a white supremacy nation, because when they're done, somehow that's a society you're going to feel comfortable, safe in, and you think you're going to survive that society because they're coming for you, Mark. That society doesn't want you. I'm
Right.
Jewish. That society does not want me. And when I see a white woman get gunned down in the middle of the street in Minneapolis, I'm like, hey, if white women aren't safe,
Then who is?
who's safe?
Yeah. It's a pretty scary deal right now, bro. And we don't have the time to waste. I mean, this country right now is obviously we're on the brink of, the point. I think we passed the point of no return. Like you said the other day, there's no way we can go back to an America that we were. We were never really that good because we didn't have a fair, just America. We just had America. Now, mind you, it might have been better than many other places around the world. I will give us that. But that doesn't mean we were perfect. I mean, and you bring up, the Holocaust reference. We still haven't made good on the African American Holocaust and slavery and Jim Crow and the hundreds of years of oppression that African Americans have dealt with on a systemic level, not just a driving while black level, but I'm talking about the ability to earn and acquire wealth, the ability to even get a job. For God's sakes, the United States is a place where your resume will be filtered out if you have a black sounding name. How fucked up is that? And we haven't dealt with that. We haven't dealt with the fact that we have a whole race of 40 million people in this country, born here, of this place, because we were robbed of our native nation, who still have a reckoning coming. not to mention the others, our brown Latino brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers. I saw an Asian woman with such a passionate post the other day on one of the platforms, and she was talking about how she grew up in the South. She was one of the only, if not a handful of Asian families in her school district, and none of the white community accepted her and her family. The black community
That's been
did.
America. Well,
The black
let's
community
remember.
did
Yeah. Why is ICE in Minneapolis? Because Trump said that
because they're racist.
Somalis shouldn't be here. That's where it
Right.
started, right? Somalis shouldn't be here. They need to be rooted out. That was the origin of why ICE was in Minneapolis. It wasn't
Right.
random. It was targeted.
Right.
Yeah, and also think about, you were saying how this rubber stamp Supreme Court basically allowed Trump to become an imperial president that he's now, run with,
Right.
is that was 50 to 100 years of navigating by groups like the Federalist Society and that Leo guy, and of engineering and figuring out a way to get a Supreme Court that basically had a white supremacist, ethos
Bent to it. Yeah.
that would use that originalism concept with all the lies and bullshit that went into it, from Scalia to they found the black guy they needed in Clarence Thomas so they could lie and make it look like they were being equitable, right?
Sure.
To finally, then they could get Roberts and they could get jam Kavanaugh in there, even though he was a rapist, and get a religious fanatic like Amy Barrett Cohen in there, and McConnell stood in the way of Obama getting a Supreme Court justice. Right, this was like maybe a century's worth of machinations to put in position to take over the court system, so that you could have a white supremacy methodology. And these are the same fuckers that wrote Project 2025, right? So this has all been a through line. This is an engineered white supremacy takeover of America. So don't tell me to be docile and just shuffle along and keep quiet and don't even talk about, a violent pushback, because if you do, we're going to crack down on you harder. Like, it's a massive government intimidation tactic. I mean, I love the fact that there's protests in Iran right now, so you can just hear the exact same verbiage coming out of both leaderships to
Right.
its people, both threatening in the same way, both telling their people to stand down, both inflicting violence and force on their people. We're fucking Iran right now, and their people are more impressive than we are, because they're fucking out there risking their lives, and we're not. We keep talking like, oh, this is civil rights movement, and we need to just change hearts and minds and win elections and, quietly shuffle along. We need to amp it up. Sorry, it sucks. Absolutely
It is
sucks.
what it
I
is.
can't believe I'm living in this America. I'm not like some fucking war hawk. I'm never in
It
the
is what
fucking
it is, bro.
military. It's like,
Yes, sir.
I just feel like this is what I'm looking at. This is the America I'm looking at. This is the government that whose thumb I'm under.
Yep.
And they don't give a shit about me. They
At
don't
all.
give a shit about me
None of
or
Any of us.
250 million other people like me.
Right.
They got their small white supremacy group.
Yeah, man. All right. Give me a quick hit before we get out of here.
Watched a documentary today on Stuart Scott, the
Oh, the 30 for 30?
phenomenal, perhaps the greatest, Oberman, Berman, Stuart Scott, right? That's like the Mount Rushmore of ESPN.
No doubt.
And but it was interesting because I remembered him like coming up through the ranks, but I didn't know his journey, and it got me to thinking about, he really kind of came around 1990s, and it got me to thinking as I was watching. It was like, shit, that's when Mark was starting his career. And it was all the talk about how like the executives they wanted him to tone it down when he moved from ESPN 2 to 1, because now it was like, oh, the mainstream audience with the real corporate
White
sponsors
eyeballs.
and all this and that, and the white eyeballs, and how, oh, he wasn't saying his sentences properly, blah 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 blah. And that's in the sports world. So it got me to thinking, like, wow, Mark tells these stories about these fucking red states that he went to work in. And I'm like, oh my God, he must have been the only black guy, maybe in the entire network, or certainly on camera guy. And they must have watched his wording and his mannerisms and everything like a hawk, like you were in Cincinnati and
Oh,
Dallas. I mean, these are red states. I mean, you mentioned Baltimore. Maybe that was a little more comfortable. I forget some of the other places. I mean, Atlanta maybe was a little more comfortable being a red state, but the city of Atlanta,
I worked at a Fox station
the
in
audience. Oh God, and they were probably still trying to. They were still probably winning some elections, right, in Atlanta once in a
Yes,
while. So you
yes.
must have gone through that exact same, like your tone and your demeanor, and like how to get to a white audience and how to keep white advertisers happy and always talking. Did you ever have a boss who was a person of color?
Yes. He wasn't the head guy. I had two. One in Detroit for 1 month. He lasted for one
Yeah, one
month
month.
and
One
left.
month.
And
Okay.
then the number two in my newsroom in Dallas was an African American. And then I also had a female executive producer in Atlanta. Um, but she was only the EP for the morning show. She wasn't the EP over the entire news operation. So, um, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was a great experience because I met some amazing people, celebrities, the people I worked with. My co-anchor and I are still very close, from Atlanta. Um, I talked to a friend who literally got me started in the business in 1990, just the other day by text, and we were saying we need to catch up. So I made some great relationships. Um, but all those relationships um, were galvanized by the pain that we were all going through in separate venues. So whenever one of us, was run up on with an issue, I'll give you a great example. Colorado, which is, a much more liberal place, um, not so much in our newsroom. And I don't know if you remember the great R&B singer Phyllis Hyman, but I grew up in the 70s in New York, and on WBLS, she was a big star. And she wasn't, Roberta Flack or anybody like that, but she had an amazing voice, and there was something about her I just loved. Well, she passed away from suicide while I was working in Denver. And when I went to the editorial meeting to say, hey, we probably ought to have something on the news about this story, Phyllis Hyman, R&B star, she took her own life today. I'm thinking it happened in New York. And they were like, who's Phyllis Hyman? I said, well, she's an R&B singer. She had, some hits back in the, early 70s, 80s. I said, kind of a big deal. Oh, yeah, no, I think we're going to have you, go out to the carnival or something. I mean, I forget where they sent me. A couple weeks later, Jerry Garcia dies. And they want me to go out to the Greenwood Amphitheater where there's some rock concert going on and get, man on the street interviews. And you know what I said? Who's Jerry Garcia? I don't think he's such a big deal. you know? And so that was a daily occurrence. I'll never forget in one of my news markets. I don't want to name names on this one because they were actually really good to me, but they put up a mugshot, and literally the mugshot looked like me. And I almost lost my mind because I got a couple of text messages. Yo, Mark, man, that mugshot looked almost like you, right? And the thing about it was that, and then I had, one of our guest bookers recounting a conversation that she had with the management team of an artist that was going to appear on the show. And she said she didn't really understand what he said because he was talking rap. I said, talking rap? The fuck does that mean? So, bro, it was hard. I always thought that being there mattered more, but I was not a decision maker in front of the camera. Behind the
But
camera.
it mattered. That was the other thing with the Stuart Scott. Is like a lot of people saying, like, well, he was like, there were other black sportscasters ahead of him, but he like
Right. He
sort of
changed the
changed the
game.
vernacular,
Yeah.
and it's kind of changed now. There's such a more fun, joking, pop
Yep.
culture-ish way of talking about sports that's expected now.
As there
Like you don't
should be.
talk about it like you're reading an obituary column. Like it's fun.
Right.
It's the toy store. Like, and so many of the athletes are black. What do what you got to pretend like there's no cultural differences and people maybe don't have different buzzwords and phrases, and he would use a lot of rap lyrics and
Yeah.
weave them into the highlights, and now it's expected. But then I turned on the NFL pregame show on ESPN, and I was like, first of all, they had six guys at the table like jammed in like sardines, right? And I was like, wow, it's an NFL pregame show, and it's five white guys and one black guy, and I can't help but notice the one black guy was what's his name, Moss, Randy Moss, and I'm like 2/3 of the players are black. How do you get this dynamic of commentators, like all ex-players, ex-coaches, and the ones moderator? I'm like, how do you have this? How is this the look of your panel? Like
They don't care.
it just doesn't fit the sport. They don't care. They're going to the white audience, but it's just like you can't help but notice these things. They're just subtle, maybe not so subtle ways in which I harp on the media a lot, because the media reflects society and it reflects our cultural biases and our racism, frankly.
Yep.
Right? There's
And-
like quota system, and I'm like, what? Randy Moss, good thing he's a Hall of Famer, because good thing he's one of the three greatest wide receivers probably of all time. That's what took to get him on there. These other
Right.
fucking guys are just like run of the mill fuckers, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Brock, look at it. That's the way the NFL works. Right? Look at its ownership. Look at its management. Matty Ice just got promoted to
Atlanta.
president
Yeah.
of-
He's
Atlanta's
the number
football
2 guy now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What's his experience? What prepared him for that job? You got to manage the salary cap. You got to evaluate talent. You got to hire a head coach. That's his first job. You miss on that, you're fucking screwed, right? So we're going to bring in a novice who's better than a guy who I'm getting my coach and GM confused. What I'm saying is the privilege belongs to a guy like Matty Ice, who can step off the playing field right into another multi-million-dollar job, into another multi-million-dollar job. Do you know, Brock, that we were watching the 49ers and the Seahawks, was it last week? The two offensive coordinators were brothers. Gary Kubiak's sons, Clay and Clint. Clay played with my son on his youth football team when we lived in Denver. And it's just amazing to me that there's so much brilliance in one family. Not that I have anything against Gary Kubiak.
No,
Well,
it just
wow.
it's all about opportunities, and it's just I never watched the NFL because I hate it, because I've basically been boycotting since Kaepernick. But happened to be in a hotel room in Chicago. Boy, was the city jacked up last night, because their black quarterback
right.
made some of the greatest plays, like fourth down off 1 foot, 40-yard pass to keep them
Insane.
alive. The city celebrated like you couldn't, you knew when that game ended, because the city exploded
Oh my
in
God.
noise. It also got me to thinking, wow, listen to this city go fucking nuts for the Bears winning this game. And I know they fought ice real hard, but how come we can't get that kind of enthusiasm for democracy?
Everyday life.
Like,
Yep. Yep.
I was literally thinking that as they were going crazy. They galvanized for this football game. They exploded in celebration together. You could just hear it across
Hugging
the
each
city
other.
as that last pass fell incomplete. And I'm like, wow.
And
All right,
and they ran home to their different silos. They were hugging each other when they were wearing Bear jerseys. Black folks from the South Side, white folks from, Deerfield, hugging each other. As soon as we got back home, the black guy with the Bears jersey looked like a suspect. That is America. All right, here's what I got for you, then we got to get out of here. Have you seen the story about the Buddhist monks walking through the South? Captivating Americans everywhere. Their mantra is peace, brother, loosely translated. But they're walking around marching for peace, headed to the nation's capital. And they've got a little dog with them. If you ever get a chance, get a few minutes, please Google the story. They are, just persevering through injuries. They've got their feet wrapped up.
Why are they here?
They're here for peace. They're here to march through this country, promoting peace, and their highest priority is to connect with people along the way. They're stopping, having conversations. They stopped here in Atlanta, and they're very soft-spoken. And one of the leaders says his hope is when the walk ends, they will, continue getting people to practice mindfulness and to find peace. And basically, mindfulness is to be, in the moment, be present in this particular moment with who you are, what you stand for, and why it matters, right? Don't just be consumed by hate. Why ask yourself why you're that way, right? Is it because your father taught you that? Is it because your mom taught you that? But their approach, right? Everybody knows at least an iota of information about a Buddhist monk, and that peace is their driving force. But at the same time, Brock, we got to find a way to motivate people to want to be better people. Watching people run up to cars and snatch people out of cars, and Karens out of control, and gang violence, it's too much.
I'm just like, if the monks can actually open the minds, that maybe then opens the hearts of America, God, I'm all for them. I don't think of myself as a cynic, but as you were saying that, I was just kind of like, wow, are they really going to make any headway here in America? I'm glad they're in the South. I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for anyone that's out there trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you hit us with that at the end of the conversation, which I started with, it may be time to go violent. And then you hit me with the monks at the end who are so committed to peace. You kind of twisted me into a pretzel. I'll have to do some thinking offline now, because I don't want to be against the monks. So now now I got myself in a tough spot. But I hope that they can have some sort of impact to some element of the American public.
Well, Brock, I'm praying for their safety. I'm rooting for their safety. Because who knows what kind of Yahoo comes out and tries to make a statement against them. That's my prayer, is that they are safe.
But if they can get to DC and they can galvanize other people to come to DC, and they can be the catalyst to drive the energy, then that's fantastic. Remember, we talked about wanting the military leaders to do that, ex-military leaders to do that, to say, hey, our military is being used improperly. We talked about that months ago, back when the parade was floated, that we wanted, because we thought that the military could galvanize huge numbers to go to DC. Hey, if it's the monks, it's the monks. I'm with anyone who can make America better and help dig us out of this hole. So if they're reaching down to pull us some out of this hole, I'm all for it.
Please hear our prayers.
I'm confused now. I leave here confused, but I think I'm better for the conversation.
There you go. Well, I mean, we're all confused, so you're not alone, my friend. All right, buddy, let's rag it up and do it again tomorrow.
All right, Mark, always a pleasure. Talk to you
All
tomorrow.
right.